Hello everybody, I'm here today with Mark Dowding, who's a fab folk singer from Perbold.
I'll pay you later, Jim. All right.
No, I'll tell you one of the things that struck me. I have played with Mark a few times when I've been at Long Weavers, but during lockdown I noticed that Mark was putting on quite a few songs with his fab guitar playing and vocal. I'm not just saying this, it's really top class songs. I thought, bloody hell, is he putting on? You put a vast amount of songs on.
I was doing about 6 a day. I was up in my room upstairs, with my little phone, just sat in front of me, and I was playing some songs because I'd seen other people put songs on. I thought, well, I'll do the same, because we've got nothing else to do.
Couldn't go out, could we?
So let's entertain people, and I was putting about 6 a day on Facebook. And getting all sorts of comments coming back, great, people were watching them and listening to them. So I kept on going, and I think I did about 260 in the end.
Wow! I know you did a lot because I watched a lot of. I watched most of them because I put stuff on as well. But I thought, bloody hell, there's something. The amount of stuff. And were they? I know a fair bit about folk music, but I don't think I know as much as you do in terms of the amount of material that you cover.
Yeah.
What's the sort of, where'd you get your material from?
Well, if I tell you how I first started, right. My dad and his colleague, they used to work in London on King's Cross Station. Doing the electrification of the railway on the East Coast Main Line. Yeah. And Tony used to come down from Carlisle to Parbold and on a Sunday, stay overnight, and then they'd both go down together for however long. It might have been a month, I think, they had, before we saw him again, And Tony'd bring his guitar with him, and he'd be showing my sister some chords and things, Neither of us played, and I'd be watching, and then my sister wanted a guitar for Christmas, and so did I. Right, because you do, don't
of course,
you? So Tony gave us these chords for Streets of London because it was a big song in them days. This was before actually it was a big hit because it was 1974 when that was a big hit. So I think it would just before it became a hit. I'd never heard of folk clubs or anything like that before. So I was singing, playing this song. And the way you play it when you first start is just a bit of a strum. You're trying to get your fingers around the chords, aren't you? But it's enough to get the rhythm and everything. And eventually I got the knack of playing it the way Ralph McTell used to play it, still does play it. And I've had one or two people say, that's the best version of Streets of London I've ever heard.
Because it's quite intricate finger picking. It's nice.
It is.
Yeah, have you got your guitar?
Yeah, hang on.
Go on, plays a bit of Streets of London. Hey, we're live here, really live in Jim's kitchen.
Jim's kitchen, yeah. Hey, it could be a new venue, this. So, so originally it's like... I play it up here because of my voice, but it's like, I'll get in tune first, that would help. We had in drop D, but I played that song right. Well, I did, anyway. Yeah. So originally you start like this, because you can hear the rhythm and the tune, can't you? Yeah, that's right. And eventually I got to going... Have you seen the old man in the closed down market, kicking up the papers with his worn out shoes? In his eyes you'll see no pride, hand held loosely at his side. Yesterday's papers telling yesterday's news. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand, I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. So that's where I started, and then
beautiful finger picking.
My dad brought home an LP of the 5-penny piece, if you remember them.
Yes, I remember them. Yeah,
they were sort of getting big at the time. I think this was their 4th LP, and it was the live one
in the 70s.
In the 70s, about 74. Yeah, it was on stage. It was the 5-penny piece on stage at the Broad Oak Hotel in Stalybridge, where they were. Because he wanted to learn one of the monologues that Eddie Crotty used to do, and it was the Battle of Hastings.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell of the Battle of Hastings as happened in days gone.
Tony used to do it as well.
Yeah. So and of course there's other songs on there as well. So and most of them were what they'd written. So there were some, if you like, poppy songs, which Colin Radcliffe and John Meeks had done. And there was also some of the Lancashire funny songs that Eddie Crotty did.
Yeah.
So I started to learn some of them.
Yeah.
One of them was Brown Photographs, which, funny enough, is the title of my second CD that I did.
Right.
Yeah. And
have you brought a copy with you?
I have. Well, I've got a copy of me, one of my others. But, so that was where I started, and then I started getting interested in other groups, like the Horton Weavers for one. My dad took me down to the Windmill in Parbold, at the hotel there, the pub. And he said, there's a good group on tonight, you'll like them. So we went down there, and there was tiny little corridor of a room, and there was the four of them, because you weren't with them at that point. This was 1976. There's four of them. There was David, Dennis, Tony, and Norman. Singing away, and they had their LP. It had just come out, House and Wakes. So I bought that, and they all signed it, and I started learning songs off that as well. So that's where it started. Then the Oldham Tinkers, the Oldham Tinkers.
Do I? Yeah, I love the Oldham Tinkers. Yeah,
I'd never seen them before, but they were on a programme called Thank You and Good Night. This is on Granada. This is when the telly went to bed. These days, you can watch telly till 24 hours a day. You can watch MASH till 2 o'clock in the morning if you want, but which we do. So they had this little programme. It was only on for 5 minutes, but what they did was record a concert, and then they'd show one song or a monologue or whatever people were doing. I think they had Blaster Bates, maybe Bernard Wrigley, and one or two others on. And the song that they sang, the Oldham Tinkers, was Signora.
Oh, Signora.
I'm in love with the furry Signora. So they call it Signora. Signora. It's an old song, that. It goes back to about 1919. Music hall, Billy Merson. But and I was entranced by that. I thought, well, let's have another listen to these. So I went out and bought an LP of theirs and learnt a few songs. And then somebody at school, because I used to do PTA meetings at school, they had these folk nights on where I was in a little group and there was a couple of other groups. So we were on stage for a couple of hours, doing these songs. And I was able to bring other songs, because the people who were singing songs that the Spinners did, and maybe the Ian Campbell folk group, they were big, popular, they're big, people used to do their stuff. I was bringing other things as well, which made it a wider variety, if you like. And one of the teachers, John Taylor, who ran the nights, he said, Mark, I've got an LP here you might like, and it's called Deep Lancashire. And on that was Harry Boardman, and the Oldham Tinkers were on it. Mike Harding was on it. Harvey Kershaw, the poet from Rochdale, he was
Bernard on it, and
I think he was on the next one. I think he did our Bill and the Concrete Mixer on Oudham Edge. I think he did that one. So again, there's a load of songs there that nobody had heard of. So I was learning some of these as well. So I was building up a repertoire of songs that nobody else did.
Because when I was talking to Bernard about you, he said that both him and Mike Harding were very much influenced by Harry Boardman. Because Harry Boardman was about 15 years older,
That's right,
15 years before them. And so you sort of coming on with that, bringing that stuff in that a lot of people have missed. I've missed out on it. You know that?
Well, Harry was, if you like, Mr. Lancashire, because he was the guy who would go through in the 50s and 60s these old books that were in the back of libraries gathering dust, and all these Victorian writers like Sam Laycock and Edwin Wall, Ned Waff to his friends. And,
is that Come One to the Children?
Come One to the Children and Me, that's Edwin Wall, which again the Oldham Tinkers did. I'll tell you a little story about that. My nan, who's sadly no longer with us, she used to tell us all sorts of stories, and the only one I could remember really is this one where her mother would send two of the lads down to the pub to get some money off their father, who was in the pub. It was payday. He was drinking it away, and if they weren't careful, they had no money. So they'd knock on the door, excuse me, is Mr. Kirkbride in here? He is. What do you want? Can he get some money off him to take back to mum, or else, we've had no food for a week, So he'd reluctantly give them some money to take home, so at least they could eat for the week. But when he got home, she got what for, but this song, Come One to the Children, is virtually the same
song.
The
same story.
This is the mother who's fretting because the kids are there fretting away and crying, and because the father's not there, he's down the pub. She goes down to the pub herself to drag him out, but it all ends happily ever after,
There's no greater comfort, my lass, except for young children
and thee. And I'm crying now. I'm filling up with that one. So again, that was a sort of song I learned because it had a bit of a connection.
But they'd be lost, wouldn't they? Without people like Harry Boardman, people like you, who's keeping it going.
Well, I'm, if you like, the second generation, or maybe the third generation, because there was Harry and his generation. And then there was the people in the 70s, like Mike Harding, who were catching on to these songs, you know. And then there's me coming along, catching on to Mike Harding, doing those songs, you know. And eventually I met Harry, and I was...
Oh, did you really?
Oh, yeah. At a concert we did at Parbold in the... Well, it wasn't called the Village Hall then. It was like the old community centre, which was an old... if anybody remembers Parbold, it was like a home office stores. Right. It's just a load of it's a big warehouse really. It's cordoned off into rooms, you know. So they had a big concert room and then a couple of other rooms. Right. And Harry came to that. So I remember seeing him there, and I've seen him a couple of other places. Was
he still performing?
Oh yeah. And eventually I went to Manchester to college and went to his folk club on a Saturday night at the Unicorn. Fantastic. And after about 5 weeks he says, "Mark, do you want to be a resident?" So he'd asked me. I would go to the Unicorn and I'd be looking round and there's all these famous faces. I was the only one I'd never heard of. You know? So, and it was a great honour really to be asked to be a resident. I mean, because Harry was there, I never did his songs. Because you don't, you know, it's one of them things. But I did other songs as well, and he was really chuffed that I was doing, because he knew I did his songs. Eventually I bought his banjo off him. Wow. So I'm still playing his banjo, you know.
Oh, that's a great, you know, it's a similar sort of thing. We were talking about the legacy of, with Dave Dutton, about the legacy of not so much the music, but the legacy dialect. Yeah. You know, and because I think, you know, when people used to live in the same village and town, the dialect was very strong. And then when we all started moving around all over the country, and other people moved in from other parts, the dialect gets weak. But it's still there, isn't it?
It's still there. I mean, you've got an accent. West Orton accent. I've got an accent of sorts. Don't ask me where it's from, because my dad was from Bristol and my mother was from North Lancashire, so there's a bit of an amalgamation. Really. Yeah, I put it on really. When I'm doing this sort of thing. But no, I think at one time, you know, because you worked in, or you lived in one street or series of streets, you worked in the mill at the bottom of them streets, and a few streets away the people worked in the mill at the bottom of their street, and they all spoke slightly different accent, different words, you know, and you could tell which street somebody came from. What a
weird human thing that is. And it's words, different, like I said, different words. You know, I said a word to Dave, to Bernard, and he only comes from Bolton. I'm from West, and he didn't know it.
No. They'd have different words in different towns and villages.
Wow. I mean, we'll have. This is just one of many. What I'm hoping to do with this kitchen thing, you know, is keep it going. So anyway, where were we up to? Harry Boardman.
So I was at his club, you know, and singing and getting to know people, and more. So I was sucking them all these songs in. I used to take a little tape recorder with me, and I'd record people singing, and just for me, you know. Years later, you know, there's people there who are sadly no longer with us. I've got recordings of them. And if you look on, there's a Facebook or web page somewhere, I can't remember what it is, All Things Considered, I think it is. Right. All Things Considered, which is Martin Gittins from Salford. Yes. He used to run the Star Folk Club. And I sent him all these files of tapes that I'd done. So they are still there. You know, there's like people like Harry, Tony Hill, who wrote some songs, and I can't remember who else, but there's all sorts of people on there who were singing live in the club.
That's fine, because you know, I think you think about the folk collectors, that's still sharp, and also the American bloke, who went round. They were going around the Appalachians and collecting folk songs. It's a similar sort of thing, because you're capturing these things before it's too late.
Before me, Paul Graney, who I'd never heard of, I never met. I think he died 1982, as I was just starting to go to Harry's club. He used to take round the clubs a big reel-to-reel tape recorder with him and record what I was doing. So I was carrying on his legacy, if you like, just doing this thing. And years later, somebody's taken all those tapes that he produced and digitised them, and they're now in the Paul Graney archive. So they're not lost, which is great, you know.
Because they would be really lost. And it's the same, like I said, with when I was a young lad growing up in West Orton, there were songs then that I'd heard my older relatives singing, and certainly the way they spoke
Yeah.
is gone.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you're doing a great thing if you can keep some of these things alive. You can't keep everything, can't keep it all alive, but you keep. I mean, what we're doing now in a way, just is for the future. I'm hoping my grandkids can look back at these tapes and say, oh yeah, Granddad's showing off again.
That's right. Yeah, but no, I think the technology these days is better than it was.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
So instead of just having some printed bits of paper in back of libraries somewhere, we've got the internet that you can put all this stuff on, and people can access it.
Yeah.
We did me and Sid Calderbank and a few others.
Sid, I must have Sid here.
Sid here, yeah.
Sid.
we formed the Lancashire Society out of the old Lancashire Dialect Society,
right?
Which I think that was formed in the 50s or so, and it had a big following. There were hundreds of people part of that. And sadly, it just tailed off, and eventually I think there was Roger Barnes and Derek Stanton left. Roger lived in Oxford and Derek's up here in Lancashire, so they hardly ever met. And Derek said to Sid, I'm thinking of folding this down because there's no chance of it carrying on. Do you want to carry on with it, or maybe do something different? And we had a bit of a get together, and Sid decided that we won't call it the Lancashire Dialect Society out of respect more than anything else, but we'll call it the Lancashire Society, and it will encompass music, song and dance, that's just to keep things going. And what we did, we had a project, we got a Heritage Lottery grant for this project, and what we did, we went round, we used the canal, the Leeds Liverpool Canal as a baseline, so we went from Bursker to Blackburn along the canal, so we'd have Parbold, Appley Bridge, Wigan, up to Chorley and then up to Blackburn, and all places in between, and we'd find people that we could go and have a chat to.
What a great thing,
I had a list of questions, and it basically started off, what's your name, where were you born, when were you born, what were your parents' names, and what did they do? And that got people relaxed, really. And then I started off as like a timeline, really. Do you remember your first day at school? And then we went through school. What was your school like? What were your teachers like? Did you do 11 plus? And I'm getting this story, but I'm getting it in the way that they tell it and the accent they use.
Will you talk to older people?
I mainly older people, some kids, but they were mainly older people who did still have an accent from the area. The thing we did once was we went to this group of people in, I think it was Bryn or somewhere like that near Wigan. And I think some of them worked at Heinz, but Sid was there with them. Now Sid's from Exton, Chorley. And there's these people from Wigan or Bryn, and they were talking together, and the difference in the way they spoke it almost grated on you because it was so different. Sid has his accent and they had their accent.
It's amazing.
But we recorded all these things, and they're now in libraries.
Oh, great!
So
you're doing a great thing. Now, what we're doing, we're these chats have got to be a certain length, so we're going to cut it there. But I'm going to hopefully Mark will come back again, and you might have. Well, Sid could come on his own, or he could come with you, whatever. But we're going to leave it there. So, thanks very much, Mark.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
See you soon.
Yeah.